I've been a YouTuber now for a little over a year, and I don't think I've had more flavourful comments than when I reviewed The Last of Us Part 2, and I gave it a pretty good review as a game. I stated in my review that the story wasn't... it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't amazing, and in my personal opinion, I don't think it was structured all that well. And the reason why I'm making this video is because I was talking to a few friends about it, and some other people keep obviously commenting on my review and stuff, so I just want to discuss the game in a non-review format. So basically, no, I do not think The Last of Us Part 2 is a bad game at all in the slightest. It's actually a very good game, and a game that actually made me want to play it, but more so because of the world, the enemies, and the gameplay itself. It expands on the first game and improves the gameplay. The first, The Last of Us, has a much better story, but dated gameplay, whereas The Last of Us Part 2 has much better gameplay, but not as good a story. Now, I absolutely I understand what Neil Druckmann did when he wrote Abby's story, 100%, and she's not actually that bad of a character. If you've never played the game but you just listen to people's reviews who hate the game and Abby, you might be put off, and I can completely understand. However, I don't think she's not a bad character. She just, like I said, in my opinion, it just wasn't written well. Do you know what would have been much better? And of course, full spoilers ahead. Is if the game started off where you play, I mean it does anyway, sort of, but like play as a young Abby, and you've just walked in and your father has been killed, and then the game goes from Abby to Ellie, from Abby to Ellie, from Abby to Ellie, etc. that way, and have I don't know, have Joel get captured maybe by some other third-party group, and then Abby and Ellie meet up halfway through the game and then continue, and then at the end of the game, as soon as Abby finds out that, obviously, because she knows who killed her father, and obviously it's Joel, and then she kills him right at the very end of the game. I think that would have been much better if you'd have built a relation, like a player-character relationship, and built that up over the course of the game, and a friendship between Ellie and Abby. It would have been a lot more emotionally impactful. And also, if you gave players the opportunity to play as Joel throughout basically the entirety of The Last of Us Part 2, and then of course he gets stripped away, but you can understand why Abby did it. However, you also hate Abby for doing it, but then you hate Joel for what he did, etc, etc. I think that would have been so much better. But The Last of Us Part 2, if you just play it as a game, treat it, it's not a film, it's not a TV series, it's not a book. I think there is a comic and there is a TV series coming out, but it's a game. It's a video game for you to play, and the gameplay itself, the weapon customization, fighting the infected, exploring the world, exploring every nook and cranny to get new components and parts to upgrade your weapons, finding new weapons, finding safes to unlock, you know, finding lore. And like in the early stages of the game in Seattle, you can mooch around in a sort of semi-open world area, and you can walk in on a bank, a ruined bank, and get things from it. But of course you learn from all the notes left by people and newspaper clippings and etc. what went on. Like this was a bank robbery that went on during the outbreak, and it went wrong and they ended up getting locked in the safe, and all the world building and stuff, that's all done really, really well. And of course it goes without saying, the graphics are really, really good, and just the way the characters move and the way they're animated is fantastic. It's some of the best animation and movement in gaming. Again, I'm not in any way saying it's a perfect game. It absolutely is not. But one thing it definitely is not is a bad game, objectively speaking. When I heard about Joel's death at the beginning of the game, originally, yeah, I was absolutely pissed off, the same as a lot of other people, when I heard that they're gonna, thrust in all this social justice warrior nonsense with Abby and etc. and blah blah blah. Now, don't get me wrong, in this world setting, she does seem unrealistically buff, considering that, you know, it's a post-apocalyptic world. There's not as much food as there is now, so God knows where she's slamming the protein in. But, you know, muscly women exist in the world. You know, sports women and all that, they kick ass. Absolutely great. But one thing I don't like is political agendas being forced in video games and in movies and etc. Movies and video games are escapism. Now, if they wanted to make a completely new IP or a spin-off game about Abby and push some political stuff in there, but make people aware from the get-go that this is all about Abby's struggle, blah blah blah, fine. That's fine. But I can understand why people are pissed off with what Neil Druckmann did with The Last of Us Part 2. You played the first game as Joel and Ellie, which worked, their relationship was amazing, it was golden, it was so well written, and then in the second game, it got stripped away straight away with Joel being offed. And I do think that Joel wasn't very well written in The Last of Us Part 2. His character would never, ever trust a group of people just out there. I don't care how. I understand that he's been living, you know, in the camp, and he's probably gone a little bit more trusting, but not of strangers. Joel has never trusted strangers. So that's a bit bizarre. But yeah, I just want to say, if there's people out there, if you've seen the game dirt cheap and you're like, I want to try it, but I've heard it's a bad game. Absolutely not. It's not a bad game. It's a very, very good game. Very fun to play. The combat is amazing. The stealth is really cool. The enemies are really, really awesome, and the game just keeps ramping up. Unfortunately, you play half the game as Ellie, then almost the other half as Abby, and then a little bit as Ellie again. And the game is about 25 hours long, 20 to 25 hours long, which is quite long for this kind of game. But I think, hopefully, if they're remaking the first game. I don't know why they're remaking the first game. It seems, personally, it seems like a waste of resources to me. But when it's going to be a when. But when The Last of Us Part 3 gets made, I hope he's just learnt from his mistakes. Don't just subvert expectations just to wow factor people. It's not earned. Don't take don't do what the guys in Game of Thrones did, where you have an amazing series and then in the last series just fudge it all up. But a bit like what Neil Druckmann did with this second game. Everybody was so excited for the second game. Vast majority of players loved the first game, and then straight away you've just divided your fan base. So half of your fan base now probably will not buy The Last of Us Part 3. And that's not good business sense, surely. But anyway, that's just what I think. That's just the ramblings, of just an older gamer. But let me know in the comments what you think. Are you just adamant that you just do not like The Last of Us Part 2, which is absolutely fine? Do you actually like The Last of Us Part 2? Again, that's absolutely fine. It's each to their own, absolutely. But it's not a bad game. It's a very good game. But thank you very much for watching the video, and until next time.